This final video is going to focus on the cell-mediated immune response, also called our cellular response, which is the second branch of our adaptive immune response. So when we're thinking about our cellular response, our key player is going to be a T cell. And remember, T cells target intracellular pathogens, which are viruses and certain bacteria. So T cells recognize antigenic peptides or antigenic fragments. And another way of saying that is it recognizes digested pathogen. Remember from the last video that B cells recognized intact pathogens? Well, T cells only recognize the antigen once the pathogen has been phagocytosed and presented. So when the T cells become activated, they release cytokines. Now, I know on the diagram you see the word interleukin. That's a type of cytokine. And so I was just trained to use cytokines instead of going into the nitty-gritty details of which one. But an interleukin is a type of cytokine. All right, so let's dig into the details of our cellular response. So you've already seen this image. It was also part of the humoral response diagram because the purpose of our cellular response is to activate these T cells. So the virgin T cell can differentiate, and we can have helper T cells, cytotoxic T cells, and memory T cells. Okay, so the reason you saw this part on the previous diagram is because the two branches are connected. Because in order to activate those B cells, we needed helper T cells. Okay, so the two branches are connected. But for our cellular response, we're also concerned with cytotoxic T cells along with those helper T cells. Okay, so kind of just to recap again, the dendritic cell has recognized an antigen, and then it phagocytosed the pathogen and presented that antigen. A virgin T cell that had that same receptor that is specific for that pathogen bound to it. That binding caused the dendritic cell to release interleukins, which caused the virgin T cell to become activated and start dividing, and it produced helper T cells, which then go and help out our humoral response. It also produces memory T cells, which are cells that are going to be involved anytime we are exposed to this same pathogen in the future, and then cytotoxic T cells. So cytotoxic T cells are going to produce their own cytokines based on what they do. But even though this virgin T cell has differentiated into 3 different types of T cells, they all have that same receptor because they're all specifically looking for this specific pathogen. Okay? So because we already know what T helper cells do, let's talk more about the cytotoxic T cells. So remember, our T cells are targeting intracellular pathogens, so we're going to use a virus here. So we see that the virus has infected that host cell. We know it's a host cell because it has MHC1 on its surface. And then as you know, viruses, once they enter the cell, they're going to take over. They're going to hijack the cell's machinery and start producing viral proteins, viral nucleic acids, etc. So as this infected host is making these viral components, it is able to kind of snag one of the viral proteins and attach it to its MHC1 and present it, okay? And so it's showing the pathogen, the antigen to the rest of the immune response like, hey, look what I'm making, guys. This is a problem. We should do something about it. Okay, So what happens is the cytotoxic T cell, it acts very, very similar to a natural killer cell, which was part of our nonspecific immunity, because here comes that cytotoxic T cell with its specific receptor that says, I've been looking for this antigen. Here it is. This is not good. I am sorry, host cell, but you have been compromised, and now I must destroy you. And that's what it does. So the cytotoxic T cell binds to that antigen MHC1 complex. Okay, remember MHC1, because this is not an antigen presenting cell. It is just a regular old host cell. So that binding between the cytotoxic T cell and the presented antigen is going to cause that cytotoxic T cell to release perforins. Remember, those are going to essentially punch holes in the host cell's membrane, and then the cytotoxic T cell is going to release other proteases, enzymes that target proteins, and it's going to go in there and activate different processes within that infected cell, including nucleases, because nuclease, right? Ace means it's an enzyme. Nuclea sounds like nucleic acid. So a nuclease is going to chop up any nucleic acid that it comes into contact with. So that's going to include viral nucleic acid, but also host nucleic acid. And so the host can't handle that. And so it goes through apoptosis, which is programmed cell death. And it essentially implodes on itself. Okay, so notice it implodes. It does not lyse, because if the cell lysed, any mature virions that had been made would be released, right? And we don't want that to happen. So this response results in the host cell imploding, so that any intact virions that are inside that host cell will die along with the host. Okay, now please note, I use the word die. We know viruses are not alive, so maybe a better way of saying that would be that any mature virions that were inside that host now cannot leave, right? The host is dead, those virions are trapped within it, so they cannot get out and infect other host cells, which was the end goal. Okay, so I made a mistake when I was putting my PowerPoint together. I meant to include this last slide with my other types of immunity, but I forgot. And so we do have this random slide here. I'm sorry, I'm just going to talk about it now. Herd immunity is a type of immunity where the vast majority of a population is immune to a particular pathogen, aka disease, because normally it's because of vaccinations. And so, right, a lot of us adults, we're all required to get certain vaccines in order to go to school, right? And so the vast majority, like 90% and higher, are immune to things like measles, right? And so therefore, if anyone, say they were traveling abroad and they brought back measles with them, if they were interacting with other people, those other people wouldn't get sick and the measles wouldn't spread because everybody is immune to it. There are no new susceptible hosts for this virus to get into. And so the very few people that aren't vaccinated against the measles in this example would be protected, because most of the people that this virus is coming into contact with are immune. And so the virus dies with that host. Okay, now that doesn't mean the host is dying, but when the virus has nowhere else to go, eventually that person is either going to get better or they may die. But that virus can't spread, okay, because most people that it encounters are going to be immune. So with COVID, this term has been thrown around a lot, right? That herd immunity is going to develop just because people have been exposed and some people have been vaccinated, so we're all going to be safe really soon. And unfortunately, that's not the case, especially considering COVID is an RNA virus. It is going to mutate much more rapidly. And so They've also found some, again, preliminary evidence, because COVID hasn't been around very long, so we just don't have a lot of evidence yet, that naturally made antibodies, like in response to having been sick from COVID, aren't providing lifelong immunity. Okay, right. So that means people can get sick again in the future. It may take 9 to 12 months or more, but they can get sick. So they are more susceptible to mutations. But what people don't understand is that herd immunity is when the vast majority of people are immune. So unless, like I said, 90+% of the population gets vaccinated, herd immunity probably isn't going to happen anytime soon. So just something to keep in mind. We are talking about vaccines in the next set of videos. So we're going to go more into that and more into herd immunity. So for now, just kind of make sure you understand big picture, what it's all about, and why it is beneficial to a community. All right, y'all, that is the end of this video series.